Welcome, everyone, to today's edition of Sports Shorts Daily, presented by the good folks over at L'Auberge Casino in Baton Rouge, where L'Auberge is open 24 hours, 365, and the rooftop pool over there is 21 and over. Joining me today is Joel Davis, of course, of Sports Shorts Radio every Saturday morning from 10 to noon on ESPN in Baton Rouge. And Gordy Rush's former best friend, Todd Black, joins us. Coach Black, of course, who's coached for a long time in the Baton Rouge. And, of course, you can check him out on ESPN Radio. Does a great job covering high school football on Friday nights. Coach Black, how are you?
Doing great. And I think I'm the one that has the privilege to say former with Gordy. He doesn't have that right. But, we used to do shows from the remote studios of Addis, which was Gordy's, while Ruffin was shaving Gordy's back.
Oh,
so that
God.
was before all this. That's a true story too.
Oh,
but that was back in the day of Between the Lines.
Well, I wanted to get you guys' reaction to last night's football game. The Cleveland Browns took on the Cincinnati Bengals. Joe Burrow and the Bengals were a 6-point underdog going into that game. But Joe Burrow, even though he threw for over 300 yards, 3 touchdowns, they come up on the losing end, lose by 5. If you took the 6, you covered. That was me. But your reaction, Joel, on what you saw from Joe Burrow in his second game as a pro.
I mean, no off season, no training camp. How do you feel? How do you think that the coaching staff feels about him letting him throw the ball 60+ times in his second ever start? Again, he looked like a guy. He looked like he did at LSU last year, minus the offensive line and minus the real A.J. Green. A.J. Green looked 175 years old last night. He clearly doesn't have a number one option. Boyd is not a number one option. Ross is probably like a 6th option or 7th. A.J. Green is clearly, thank God the Saints didn't trade for him last year because he's done. He's done. I mean, he had 13 opportunities last night from Joe Burrow. 13 opportunities to catch the football from Joe. He caught 3. That, my friend, is not a number one wide receiver. That, my friend, is not a Hall of Famer. And a lot of those throws were very catchable balls, right? We saw it. You watched it. His numbers should have been better. A.J. Green should have had a couple of touchdowns if he would have just, played better at his position. But to me, Joe Burrow is the real deal. He's obviously athletic enough. Give that dude a number one wide receiver. Give that dude an offensive line that can protect him. And he's going to be in the league for the next 18 years with that noodle arm slicing and dicing. Defense is up.
Todd, Todd, I want to get your reaction. Former Neville High quarterback who y'all probably threw it, 3 times a game when y'all won state up in Neville back in the 80s?
I have a record that no one will ever beat, and that's the most handoffs in a season.
But what was your reaction to Joe? And is he about where you expected him to be? Does he look like what you expected him to be?
Absolutely. He's a lot better. My 11-year-old's asking me, has there ever been anybody step in the league and play like he has? And I said, it's only been 2 games, but there's 2 things he did that were very impressive. It showed a lot of maturity. I think they were on the 6-inch line, and they were trying to get Cleveland to jump off. They just held them on 4th and goal. So Cincinnati has the ball. He runs through his count. They don't jump. He checks, and boom, he got him to jump just like that. And the other one was when he was rolling to his right, about to run out of turf, and he fits a ball, I don't know, in a small window on the run for a completion. And that type of mobility is what these older guys are missing. And now, like Joel says, if he has a line, he doesn't have to get out of that pocket that much. But, I mean, he's taking what the defense is giving him. That last drive he had, he didn't force anything deep. He's very patient. And I think football-wise, he's just years beyond his age. And I think that's what's going to make him so good. And what's scary, though, is Joel said he'll be in for 18 years. If he's in there, it's going to be 2038 before he retires.
It's unbelievable.
Is that scary or what?
Very scary.
That's unbelievable. And look, the Bengals obviously are not a good team. Very reminiscent of when Peyton Manning was a rookie, and I think his team went 1-15 or 2-14, something like that with the Colts. So it's going to be a long year for Joe Burrow. No question, they'll get weapons around him in the next couple of years. And players will want to come play for him if he can continue to play to this level. I want to get your reaction to a guy who had a good bounce back game yesterday, and that's Baker Mayfield. You know, a week ago, people were writing off the Browns, and this was a bust. And yeah, you know, granted it was one game and all, but Baker Mayfield in the Battle of the Heisman showed up.
Well, he had a running game. He had a running game, Coach, and
Absolutely.
That was to me what made the difference in the ball game. Baker still made a couple of bad throws, threw a pick late. The Browns were trying to be the Browns last night. They tried to mess it up with a kick out of bounds. They were up by, I think, was it
12, I believe, at one point, or 11.
They were up at 12, and they were moving down the field, about to score again, and Baker throws an ill-advised pass. He's the opposite of Joe Burrow. He's impatient. He's the guy that wants to stretch the field. He's the guy that wants to score quickly. He doesn't want to be on the field that long. He wants to pop you and get off the field and let his defense. But his running game with Hunt and Chubbs, that was the catalyst to why Cleveland was so successful last night, more than Baker Mayfield.
So my question is like, why would you call that pass? Because if I remember correctly, they were gashing Cincinnati at that time. And
Up
so,
12.
but Baker Mayfield, I think Baker Mayfield, Ronnie, the thing is what you've got is the consistencies there, not there week to week. And, you know, he and Joe Burrow are so different with the mind game, right? I mean, Burrow's just there to win. Baker Mayfield's there to have fun and win. So I think that
he wants the flashy play. Coach, would you agree?
Yes.
He wants the flashy play where Burrow could care less about the flashy play.
That's right. He's Burrow's just he just gets the job done. He gets hit hard. It don't bother him. He just has that. He's got a moxie about him. That's a word I hadn't used, but it's really fitting here because he doesn't get rattled. But they asked him earlier this week about being nervous. He said, "Do you ever know me of being nervous?" I mean, and we really don't. But that's the type of player he is, and I think his team, they're going to learn to step up because he ain't going to quit. He's going to compete for 4 quarters every single game, and that's why you got to love him.
Yeah, no, the moxie word is a perfect description. That's a Skip Bertman word, and it describes describes Joe perfectly. Speaking of flashy, as you guys mentioned, talking about Baker Mayfield, Deion Sanders, he's going to be coaching in college football, guys. It's Jackson State University expected to hire prime time at 52, 53 years old to be their head football coach. By the way, this spring, because the SWAC is not playing this fall, they're supposed to be playing in the spring. And, you know, last January on the Dan Patrick Show, Primetime said, I think it was during the Super Bowl or something, he said, "I'm going to be a head coach in college football in the fall." And I remember I thought, that is ridiculous.
What?
I mean, but here we are this week. He's going to get that job. They're working out the details because he's contracted by Under Armour, and Jackson State's a Nike school, so they got to work out the details on that. But Brett Favre came out in support of Deion, saying he should be the head coach at Southern Miss. Well, your reaction, Todd, I'll ask you. You coached for a long time. He's an offensive coordinator in high school. Now he's going to be the head coach in the SWAC.
So the concepts are the same. However, I think the smartest thing Deion can do is get some people around him that know how to coach. And I'll say this all the time, just because Tiger Woods is the best golfer in the world doesn't necessarily mean he's the best coach. So Deion's got to get some people around him that understand what's going on. But he's got to fit, man. He'll be able to recruit. He'll be able to motivate those players, and he'll probably get out there and dress out with them and be able to hang with them too. But I think for Jackson State, who, you know, has really struggled for a while, it's not a bad move. It's almost, Joel, like you got nothing to lose, but bringing Deion in, I think is a good thing. I don't have a problem with it.
Jackson State's 21-40 since 2014. This is a proud SWAC institution that's used to competing for championships. Hasn't been relevant for a while. Your reaction, Joel, to prime time going to Mississippi?
Well, if Jackson State was an NFL quarterback, they'd be Baker Mayfield. That's called a splash play. That is a major splash play. Let's get as much attention, let's get as much hype going as we possibly can. And, I mean, they went for the big name. But we've seen this before. I love Deion Sanders. I didn't like him when he didn't sign with the Saints back in the days, and he went to San Francisco from Atlanta over the Saints. I know that he was a free agent, and I was praying that the Saints would sign him, and they didn't. But he's got a lot to learn. I mean, coaching is a profession. He's a professional football player. There's no question. But is he a professional coach? We don't know. At the college level, they may not be in the professional ranks, but they're professional at their job, right? Coach Orgeron, just go Nick Saban. These are professionals. I know that that's at D1. This is Jackson State. But we've seen this happen to great athletes that turn into coaches. Mike Singletary is the one that comes to mind right off the bat. Unbelievable middle linebacker, one of the greatest of all times. Complete dud when it came to being a head football coach. So time will tell. I agree with Coach Black. He's got to surround himself with football guys. I don't see him spending a lot of time. When you got that much money, dude, do you really want to go into kids' houses and, beg for them to come to your school? I just don't see Deion being this big recruiter like Ed Orgeron. I mean, he wants – and Nick Saban going into these kids' houses and begging them to come play for them. I don't see Deion do – maybe he will. Maybe he'll shock the world. But do you see him doing that?
I tell you what, I think it's going to be interesting to see how long he stays in Jackson, regardless of success, whether, good, bad, or otherwise. I think he's going to grow tired and he's going to want to go to the bigger stage. I see maybe a 2 years in Jackson State, and if it's not going right, he's going to expect to jump to a better school. But they will get better players, no question about it. With everything that's going on politically around the country right now, I think there's a turn. HBCUs are getting a little bit more another look. I think he's going to be able to sell himself, the SWAC and the HBCU story. And I think he's going to surprise you. I think you will see some players say, you know what, I'm not going to maybe go to a Southland. I might go play for Deion in the SWAC. That's just my thought.
Ronnie, one more thing is, when Deion played, I'd have never thought this, but I think he would be a good role model for a lot of kids. I mean, he's underneath of all that glitz and glamour, he's got a good head on his shoulders, and I think he can put some kids in the right direction, and I think that'll be a big plus for him too.
Well,
I agree with that 100%.
Primetime's in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Yesterday, some big news out of Louisiana. The Louisiana Sports Hall of Fame announced its 2021 class, and we won't get to all the participants in the class. You can go to lasportshall.com to read up on it. But Glenn Dorsey is one of the people that's going to be getting inducted in 2021 alongside Marcus Colston. So that's your two football guys that are going to be in the 2021 class. Glenn Dorsey played 9 years in the NFL, Todd. A little bit disappointing, right? Injuries, and he wasn't as dominant. I mean, we're talking about an Outland Trophy winner, who's the greatest defensive lineman in the history of LSU. So the production at the pro level probably wasn't as much as a lot of people expected it to be. But this is arguably him and Tommy Casanova, right? The two greatest defensive players in LSU history.
I know. I'll speak real quick for high school. I watched him. He played a position that if you couldn't handle it as an offense, you got whooped. And there wasn't many people that could handle him by double teaming him, much less triple teaming him. But, when he went to LSU and did what he did, and, those guys get beat up so much down low in the trenches, with their knees and so much. And he may not have had that type of year he wanted to have in the NFL. But, I know at LSU and at EA, I followed him more in college and in high school, just to be honest. And he was a phenomenal player. His motor never stopped. He was a quick, big man. And you have those type of skills, you're going to be an asset to wherever you go. And, if I remember correctly, I thought he did have some injuries, but I'm not positive on that.
Mm-hmm. Joel, the anchor of the 2007 national championship team at LSU. We talk a lot about Matt Flynn and Jacob Hester, but on the defensive side, number 72 was, in my opinion, the best player I ever saw at LSU.
Well, I mean, it's nowadays it's hard to say that though, Ron. When you look at the Honey Badger and what he was able to do while he was there at the defensive position, and now you got a young Stingley that could go down as the greatest defensive back in the history of LSU, and that says a lot. That says a lot of all the guys that have come through that program. He played defensive back. But Glenn Dorsey, complete animal. But I'll tell you what, 9 years in the NFL is nothing to sneeze at. Because usually if you're not productive, no matter where you're drafted, you can be washed out in 4 years, right? That rookie contract, 4-year contract, if they don't pick up that 5th-year option. So at the end of the day, he got a second contract, maybe even a third. Did he move around? Yeah, but at the end of the day, he got 9 years in the NFL, so he had to be productive at some level. Hall of Famer in the NFL? No. Productive, obviously.
Wes, last topic, I want to get your reaction. You two guys that work very closely with high school football teams, athletic departments all throughout Louisiana. Joel with Red Zone Fundraising, and Todd, of course, coached and does radio for ESPN in Baton Rouge. But a sad story out of Denham Springs High School. Remy Hidalgo, junior lineman, passes away due to heat stroke. And unfortunately, this happens in Louisiana every few years. It feels like every once in 2 or 3 years you hear of a case where this happens. And that's a program that you're close to, Todd. And I can't even imagine what the, Hidalgo family's going through, but also the Denham Springs family.
I text Robin Fambro this morning, and because I wanted to make sure what I was reading was accurate. And, it's the worst nightmare for a coach. And because when a kid is allowed to play for you, his safety is your number one priority, whether it's lightning, whether it's gunshots, heat stroke, whatever it may be. And that's always first and foremost on our mind. And, unfortunate situations, and I know Brett Beard, who was the head coach out there, and, I can't imagine what he's going through. I reached out to him this morning and texted him and told him there's nothing I know I could say to make things go better. But, I'm praying for him and hope that, if there's anything, just to let us know. And so then from a parent's, standpoint, you can't imagine that. And those things we try to watch for. I mean, it's tough. You try to give them water breaks a lot of times. You try to do everything. You try to look out for it. It's not like you're not aware of it. And this was a situation that unfortunately things just didn't end up like we would hoped. And it's tough for Denham Springs. It's tough for Coach Beard. I know it's tough for the LHSA and the rest of the state. It's just a sad situation. And it just brings you back to reality, to what's important in life. Sometimes it's not always necessarily whether you get 25% in the stadium. It's just about being here day after day. And for a young man to lose his life like that, it's really tough for a coach to take. And it's really tough even being here to take, because I can put myself in my kid's situation, or I could put it in Coach Beard's situation.
Joel, your reaction?
Yeah. Look, nobody gets more out of his kids than Coach Beard. Nobody gets more out of his kids than Coach Beard. And I'll also say this, there's nobody that loves his kids more than Coach Beard. And I know him on a personal level, and I've seen him in action with these kids. And I can tell you right now, that dude is devastated right now. He is absolutely devastated. And that whole coaching staff, the community, the family, everybody is devastated. And you're right, Ronnie, it seems to happen every 2 or 3 years. And I think that this one is a little bit more difficult to deal with, because we know we're so close to it.
Yeah.
We're right here. Ronnie, you're in Denham Springs. Coach Todd Black knows Beard on a personal level, talks to him all the time. Me, Red Zone Fundraising, working in football, calling football games over the years. I know him on a personal level. So this is the worst, because right now that he's going through something that us three have never experienced, and it's hard to say exactly what he's going through, but it ain't good. And man, all we can do at this point is just continue to send our prayers, reach out, send love, and pray that we get past this sooner than later. And you'll never forget, but hopefully we can recover sooner than later.
The final thought is on this topic is, it's amazing it doesn't happen more often. And what I mean by that is, nowadays they have so much information. And of course, a big 5A school like Denham Springs has the trainers and the staff, and, they take water breaks all the time. And I mean, they know what they're doing. And Coach Beard played at Vanderbilt. He played at Southeastern. He's been coaching for years. So Denham Springs High didn't do anything wrong in this situation. This was just a one-off deal. Nobody knows what each individual body is going through. But, when I was playing football in the late 80s and when Todd was at Neville High in the mid 80s, I literally played for old school coaches where we didn't even get a water break. There were times where we literally might have gotten one water break in a 2.5-hour practice. And so, it could have easily happened to us back then. And we didn't have the information and the knowledge that they have now. And so it's tragic that it happens at all. And all we can do is send love and prayers out to everybody in the LHSA, and particularly in Livingston Parish at Denham Springs. Todd, tell the folks where they can hear you on ESPN Radio.
For the next couple of weeks, we're going to be on Friday nights, tonight from 6 to 8. It'll be Friday nights from 6 to 8. We're going to do previews. Tonight will be 4A, 3A, and then 2A and 1A. And then starting October 1st, we're going to have our 6 to 7 o'clock show. It's going to be Cade Wazan with Prep Preview. And then at 10 o'clock, we're going to come on 104.5 ESPN, and also CST will be on there as well from the 12, bringing you all the updated scores from around the state. And glad to see the southwest part of the state's gotten up and they're able to participate this year, because I felt like those kids really needed something to get them, away from such tough times they've had with COVID and now the hurricane. So it's good that they as many schools as possible is getting back up ready to play high school football. It'll get our minds off of some other things, and look forward to getting the community back together and running them 30 traps and 48 sweeps and buck sweeps and all that other good stuff. That you do from under the center.
Check out Joel Davis and I tomorrow morning on Sports Church Radio from 10 to noon on ESPN Radio in Baton Rouge. We'll be at Greystone Golf and Country Club, great golf course in Denham Springs. That's tomorrow from 10 to noon on ESPN Radio. Thanks for watching Sports Shorts Daily, presented by the L'Auberge Casino. We've got some great guests coming up. Next week, we'll have a lot of the Louisiana Sports Hall of Famers, Glenn Dorsey, Ricky Weeks, and many others will be joining us right here on Sports Shorts Daily. Don't miss it. Go to YouTube, Sports Shorts, hosted by Ronnie Rance, and subscribe.